What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of The Imagination. I am Emma, and I am so honored to introduce to you guys today Miss Isibeal Rafela from the UK. We're actually meeting at two totally different times. This isn't our first rodeo on the show with a UK guest.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Isibeal is going to have some new topics that we haven't actually talked about today, such as demon possession and voodoo. So these are two topics we've never talked about on this podcast. She's also a survivor or overcomer, in her words, of rape and child trafficking as well. Her story is going to absolutely blow your mind. I know for me, it had me on the edge of my seat, crying at times, angry, and at the same time, so inspired that she's able to stand here before us today, tell her story bravely, and educate people like me and you on things that we're not aware of generally in the world. So, Isibeal, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, your story is really fascinating. Like I said, you've gone through some things that I haven't even touched on in this podcast. And with your knowledge, I've heard you on other podcasts. You're a wealth of knowledge on the topics of demon possession, voodoo. And I think a lot of people are curious about those things and don't have any idea of what they are. I'd like to start. I want to get into you. Would you be able to explain to us just what exactly voodoo is? For people who maybe have seen it on TV or who have had an idea of what they think it is, I think it's not talked about enough, and there's not enough information out there for people to even understand the context.
Right. Voodoo actually originated from Africa, different parts of Africa. It goes way back, way before even slavery times. It goes back to the essence of Africa.
Oh, wow.
Africa was a place where there was, they at a time, they never believed in God, the ultimate God that we all know about. And they had different gods and different goddesses. The Egyptian also had a various sort of similarity in the, in terms of gods and goddesses and other Greek, it's similar. But the difference was with the voodoo aspect that comes from Africa, it's actually to do with worshiping different types of, I would say, to do with the sun, like you may be worshiping God of the sun, God of thunder, God of the forest, God of water, the river, the water spirit. So it's different types of gods, and then you'd have certain, like in certain Santeria where people would know about. There is where it comes from, Benin. It comes from west part of Africa, which originated when once the slave master had taken the Africans out, they held on to their religion. It was a form of a religion. It was a spiritual way of living. In Yoruba tribe, somewhere in Africa, there's something called Dambala. Dambala actually is like a snake worshipping in certain parts of Benin, which is Africa. So it's there on Google. You can look it up. So there was certain, it's a form of spirituality and a form of worship and a form of, I would say in their way, it's a way of, it was an essence. So for example, in Africa, you always hear about the drums when they're beating the drums, and you'd know the people go in a trance. So it's like they're worshiping, they've given themselves up to that entity, that particular entity that they worship, and that the drums will take over them. So it's no longer their body. And then you would have certain voodoo priests you always see that they always smoke cigar. Cigar, when once someone comes to the voodoo man or whoever, or the witch doctor, what actually happens is the smoke is what the gods, that particular spirit wants. So it might want an alcohol, which is like a Ray nephew, it might be a spirit. You see them always take a spirit and then they'll, pour it out there, and then you see them take a cigar, because that's like invoking the spirit to come in and do what it needs to do. So voodoo is a form of worship which originated from Africa. There's different aspects to it. So yeah.
That's fascinating. I think in my mind, I was taught it's more, almost like with the dolls. You have dolls, and that might be a part of it, but the dolls get pins put in them or they're made to, affect somebody by what you do to it.
Yes,
So that's interesting. I never knew that it was actually something that people would consider a practice or a belief
yes.
system.
Yes, it's actually a practice. But the voodoo dolls, it does happen. It's more when the slaves came, when they were taken away from West Africa, and then they came to Europe. Basically, they came to America and they came to the UK and things like that. So what had happened, that's where Santeria, right? They were the sort of the ones that started the voodoo thing, with the dolls and things like that. But it goes way deeper than that. They're showing you the surface of things. It goes way, way deeper than that.
Well, let's get into that. Your story starts really since the time you were born. You were born into a family that put you into some of these systems. Let's talk
Yes,
about your experiences with these things because you've gone through a lot in your life, and I think just from beginning to end, your story is just filled with so much different trauma, horror, and at the same time,
yeah,
so much inspiration. I listen, I'm like, gosh, one of those things would have destroyed me. And you just over and over and over and over again have overcame all of these different obstacles in your life. And like I said, there's so much inspiration I draw from your story at the same time. And I think people listening will feel the same. So let's get into you. Let's talk about the voodoo and what led to the demon possession, how that actually happens. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what that can be and mean to you. And let's
right.
talk about who you are.
Okay, so my origin actually come from Nigeria, which is actually the riverside, which they call us Calabar. You don't hear most about us in the media. You don't see much about us because we're actually from the village, but and we keep a lot of our secrets. Like we hush basically. We don't tell very much. What actually happened to me was my mother, right, was born into a three. She was I think she was the second daughter of her father, which is my grandfather. My grandmother, which is my mother's mother, was actually half Philippine. She was a mixed race lady, half Philippine and half Nigerian. And in the culture, there's a lot of prejudice. So if you are not from the same tribe, you are not supposed to marry into, you have to, so a Calabar has to marry a Calabar, a Igbo has to marry an Igbo. So if you go outside your tribe, it's an abomination. But then to bring someone from a completely different race, that in itself is an abomination
Oh,
in
wow.
those times. And what had happened was my grandmother was killed through voodoo. And my mother was left at a very young age without a mother, and her father died as well when he was coming to see me in the hospital. It all started when I was born. When I was born, my grandfather was coming to see my mother in the hospital, and my grandfather died, had a car crash. So my mother had told my father, because my father was quite wealthy, he was a wealthy womanizer at the time, and my father wasn't, just wanted to have sex with different loads of women. And when my mother presented, because at the time my mother was quite good looking, she was a good looking woman. I think she had me when she was 17 years of age.
Well, look at you. You're
So
absolutely beautiful. So I can imagine
thank
you
you.
beautiful
Thank
too.
you. Thank you. So my mother was a 17-year-old pregnant at the age of 17-year-old, and her father died coming to see me in the hospital while I was born. She had told my father, look, this is your child. My father disowned her and said, no, look, it's not, I'm not interested. So she tried to get the family to get her married to my father, but my father was reluctant. He wasn't going to marry her, final. So she resented me because she loved my father so much. She thought because my father was wealthy and was not a bad looking man as well, that it would make her life easier. So a 17-year-old lady or young girl has a child. The mother has died at a young age. The father has died coming to see the child. the potential father does not want to have nothing to do with her. So there's a lot of bitterness, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of resentment. So it went to a situation where she was very poor. Her family was quite poor, struggling. And she left me at the age of 2 years old. She got married to right now, which is my sibling, my second sibling. She's about 7 years younger than myself. Younger than myself. And she came with her father at the time to England, right, through marriage. When she came, she sort of abandoned me. She sort of said, look, let your father, your father has money, let your father look after you. But instead, my father was so much into chasing women. So once again, he abandoned me myself. So I was living with different sorts of people. In the process, I went through starvation. So I was malnutrition. And I was one of those kids with really big heads, bony bodies, and not well looked after. My father has given me. So I was about, at this point in time, she had left me at the age of 2. So from the age of 2, I was not taken care of at all. So my body started deteriorating, you could see the bones as I grew older. So in the process, I was being maltreated as well by the people who were taking care of me. So I moved from different homes to different homes. And I came in contact at a very young age. I actually went through sexual abuse as well. Not completely, losing my virginity, but I'll talk you through it. So I lived in this compound, and at the time I believe I was about 4 or 5 years old, just before my mother came to visit me. And I was being told, go to the river, get the water and bring. So a lot of the times when the kids were eating, I wasn't I wasn't being given food to eat. So they'll put the food in a big, massive tray on the floor, and I'll be eating among, you could imagine, boys of 20 years old, boys of 18, 16, 12 years old. You could, you'd have boys and girls of 10 years old. So I'm very young. I'm only about 4 or maybe even 3 years old. So I'm eating, and my mouth, I can't eat as quick as the others. So by the time I go to eat, the food is finished. So I would go to the lady who was, who I was living with, please, can I have a little bit to eat? And she'll be like, yeah, I've given you, she'll get aggressive. I've given you something to eat, and you're too greedy. And I'm like, I didn't eat. So, I was being basically maltreated. And I remember one instance, it's crazy because I was talking about this with someone the other day. I was actually being told to go and fetch water. When the kids were sleeping, early hours, during nighttime, I'll be woken up quite early, maybe about 3 a.m. in the morning, or 3:30, or coming up to 4, to go and fetch water. And for me to go from the compound I was living to go and fetch water, I would actually see, you would go through the forest. So imagine there's snakes, there's all manners of things in the jungle. We're talking like jungle forest. So I'm going quite tired. And as I get there, so this was one of my chores that I had to do. So imagine a child who's malnourished, who doesn't even have the strength to be able to live, basically. But yeah, I have to do a lot of chores, really hard chores. So I went to the river. As I got there, it was about 3:40 something a.m., I believe, because it wasn't quite bright yet. And I went to fetch. That was the first time I ever came in encounter with a mami water, which is called in the Western mermaids. They call them mermaids. But just to clarify things, a mermaid is not what is being portrayed in the society, in terms of Ariel. Mami water, which is what we call it, the Africans know it as mami water, which is mermaid. When I went to the river, I came in contact with that mami water, and it's very ugly looking. I'll tell you, that thing is so ugly, you wouldn't believe it. It was like a fin, it's like half fish, which is correct, but the face, it has sort of like a very wrinkled body. And the head it doesn't even have hair at the top of his head. There's no hair there. So it just has like strings of it. It's very, very ugly. So I saw something appear from the water and I got scared, right? And as I was walking, even to go and get the water, I could hear like a screech, a scream. Let me tell you something. When a mami water, the thing they call mermaid, when this thing, right, actually sings, it comes like it's singing. It's quite enticing. It can entice men, it can entice females, it can entice anyone. The sound from afar is so echoey, and so it sounds, I don't know how to explain into words, but it's kind of like, it's not screechy, but it's kind of like it's very echoey. And it's very enticing. It can entice you. That was why I was actually scared before getting there. But when I got there, I thought I wanted to turn back. As I got to the river to get the water, I saw this thing appear, right? And it looked at me and I dropped the water and I ran back. When I ran back, I got beaten by the lady. Why did I not I said, I saw something. She told me, go back. So I had to go back again to go and fetch the water, and I was crying. So I came back late. I finally got the water a bit when the lights came up, I think about 5-ish, because I sort of stayed outside the compound for a while and then went back to fetch the water. When I fetched the water, I came back, I was being beaten and everything. That was my first encounter with this mermaid entity. And since after I saw that mermaid, I'll tell you, my life got worse, because I now understand, but then I did not understand. What I should have done was not run away from it. I should have stood there. I should have let it talk to me, right? And probably give me a task and ask me, what do I want in life? My life would probably be better. But because I ran away from it, my life got worse. That's where it started. So when I came back, I was being mistreated a lot. Everyone didn't like me. And then at the age of 4 years old, I believe 4 or 5 years old, right, my mother came to look for me. I saw this nice looking lady, light-skinned lady, and she goes, at the time, I called myself MM. She called me MM. I changed my name. So she goes, I'm looking for MM. And I said, it's me. And she looked at me, right? And then she cried and she goes, I'm coming. She went and spoke to the lady. And then she said, I'll come and get you. But she didn't come to get me. That wasn't the case. So I moved from different hands. I was maltreated. I went to live somewhere. My mother finally gave a lady, as I was growing up, I even lived with one of my aunties who now lives in America. And she treated me nice. And then she had to leave to go and get married she had to move to America. I experienced situations where the house helps in certain houses tried to touch me down there at a young age, at the age of 7 years old. And then at the age of, I had a girl who basically tried to, have lesbian sex with me at a very young age when I was 8 years old. Then I also had a situation where I went to live with my auntie, and she had said to me that I can stay with a neighbor because she was a nurse at the time. And I went to stay with him. The man he grabbed me up, tried to have sex with me. He pulled me literally and everything, and I was screaming. I was screaming down the whole compound. I was so scared. I sort of struggled. Somehow I ran away. And then I slept outside of the door because my auntie was working night shift at the time. I never told my auntie about it. And yes, I remember even one of my uncles at the time who picked me up one time when he came to see me with one of my auntie, the one who lives in America. He put me on his lap. At the time, I wasn't aware. I didn't know what penis was. I'm still young. I'm only about maybe 9 years old or coming up to 10. They put me on his lap to sit down, but he had a hard on. I now know it. He had a hard on. So I felt so uncomfortable. So I moved myself to sit on one side of his lap and he put me back on his lap. So this was what I was going, if from a very young age, I'd already been going through, I'd seen things, I'd already been going through those, the pedophilic thing, the grooming of the little child already. And I remember an incident. There was a particular lady who was called Deborah, right, at a time. And she put me, I was staying at her house and she told me, I'm going away. There was this house help who was there. I was by the fridge. I actually experienced seeing a real witch change face in front of me. So, which I never mentioned about, as I'm just covering certain parts I never mentioned. And she changed the face in front of me. I looked at her, she was normal. I looked at her, her face looked dismantled in one side. And then that was where the fear factor. So fear factor within me had started with all the experiences, but that was the fear that was the part where I froze. There's some people that when you get scared or you're afraid, you freeze. So I experienced that freeze, like, did I just see what I just saw? So I got angry. So I sort of went, and then all of a sudden she changed back, and then I was just like that, didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden she said to me, go and do your homework. And I said to her, I'm not doing. So I refused to be anywhere near her. And then when Deborah came back at about 2 a.m. in the morning, right, at this particular time, there's something they call in Nigeria, which is called NEPA, is like the lights can go off any time. So you'd have to use like a generator. So the lights went off in the whole area. And so I had to, when my auntie walked back, there was a lantern right there. And she turned around, she said to me, look, why didn't you do your homework? The house of us told me that you were very rude to her. They told me to do a thing called pick pin. Pick pin is something where you put one finger, that finger, right? I don't know if that's index. Is that called an index finger?
Yeah, index finger.
Yes, correct. So you put your index finger right down. You lift up one foot, your left foot up, while you put one foot down. So just because of the camera, you say sort of you're doing this, but you're lifting up. So I had to do that for about an hour. And every time I shaked, she was sitting on the chair. And every time I made a move, start again. So I'd have to keep starting again. So afterwards, she switched it over to me doing a thing called 90 degrees. So 90 degrees, you're doing like a sitting position, like you're sitting down, but you're putting your hands just in front of you straight. It has to be straight, aligned with your body, and you have to just sit in the air. But if you shake, she would ask me to do that again. So she asked me to do that. I did that for about 4 hours. So from 2 a.m. in the morning to 6 a.m. in the morning. So, and then afterwards, I'm shaking. Anytime I went to sort of sit down, I don't know how the woman knew I was sitting now. She'll tell me, I can see you, start again. But there's no lights. There is no lights. And I knew she was a witch. Then something didn't seem right, but she's a proper witch. And that was one incident. And then it moved on to me now going to live with this lady. And my mother had paid for this lady to put me in a private school, the best school, one of the best schools. And I was going to a private boarding school, which was run by a British lady. And money was being given to me, right? And do you believe that the lady that was looking after me took the money from me, took all my provisions, took me out of the school? The money that my so-called mother was giving to the lady had taken me out of the private boarding school that was lovely to put me in a public school. Then I experienced another situation in the public school. This is as I got much older. I experienced another issue where there was this young girl. She was levitating from the bed. Something will pick her up from the bed, throw her down, because I was on a bunk bed. So I'm below, she's at the top. She's at the top bunk bed. So every single night, nobody wanted to sleep on the same bed as her. Everybody wanted to stay in a different bed, but that was a bed I was assigned to. So every night she's screaming, something is picking her up from the bed, throwing her down on the bed. So everyone said she's a witch. As young as I was, I said to her, no, something is not right here, because she's always screaming. And one day I spoke to her. I think at this time I was about maybe 10 years old, 10, 11 years old. I said to her, why are you always screaming? And why is something always picking you up? She said to me, she confessed to me, she said to me, I keep seeing my uncle, my dead uncle, and my dead uncle keeps having sex with me. You know, that we made a blood vow, meaning that he had cut himself, which is what they do in the West now. He had cut himself and made a blood, and he had cut her, they had made a blood covenant when he was, you know, alive, that they will never separate in life and in spirit. In death and in life, they will always be bound together. So that covenant that she had made with him when he died, he visited her. His spirit was always there tormenting her and having sex with her and everything. And so I remember I said to her, look, what you need, because I was brought up as a Christian from a young age, I said to her, what you need to do is you need to pray to God. This is something that you need to commit to God. I said to her, she goes, I don't know, I've gone to so many pastors, no one's able to do it. So I said to her, I was aware of a lot of practices, you know, prayer and fasting and things like that. You know, you pray and you fast and pray to God and things like that. So I did a 3-day fast, right? And then I said to her, look, I'm going to try and help you as much as I can, because I don't like what you're going through. The 3rd day, I broke my fast and I said to her, I'm going to pray for you today. But as I'm going to pray for you, want the healing for yourself. So I laid my hands on her and I was praying for her for a good hour. I didn't know I actually healed her. That was the first time I'd ever experienced, you know, any kind of miraculous wonder. Do you know what? That day she never had no nightmares, nothing attacked her. The following day she said to me, you know what? I don't know what you did to me, but the whole thing has gone. And I said to her, just give your life to Christ. I would ask you to give. And she did. And that was the first time I'd ever experienced God in someone else's life through, you know, him using me. And then it moved on to a lot of suffering from a lot of the people that were looking after me. I was getting moved from different homes to different homes. All this while, my mother has been trying to get me to come over to the UK, but with no success. Then she decided to, when my auntie had left, they'd sent me to this lady, Deborah. This lady, Deborah, then moved me back to a compound, this other lady. And then from her, they sent me to one of my uncles who's now dead. May his soul rest in peace, Uncle Tony. And I went to Abuja, which is the northern part of Nigeria. And when I got there, there's a lot of voodoo, there's a lot of practices there, a lot of black magic practices in that particular continent. If you do much about their history, they call the Fulanis. The Fulanis, there's a lot of history behind, you know, people from that tribe. And I remember my uncle lived quite wealthy because he was a civil engineer. And I didn't have nobody. I moved to the northern part of Nigeria. Lovely place, lovely area, but I don't know nobody. I'm not going to school. So I was quite bored. We had like a tennis court outside. So I went to the playground where there's a tennis court and there's also like little things that you can do there. So I met up with this light-skinned, beautiful young looking girl, but I think she was about 2 years older than myself or 3 years older than myself. And she said to me, "You're so pretty." And I said, "So, oh, thank you." And I thought maybe at least I have a friend to talk to. And then the next thing I know, she said to me, "Have you ever had sex before?" I said to her, "No, I'm a virgin." I said, "Have you?" She goes, "Yes, I have." And then she said to me, "Look, right, you can have anything you want. You know, my aunties can make things happen." Like, she's telling me, "Look, anything you want, you can have." And I'm thinking, all I'm thinking in my head, I just want a friend. I like where I'm living. I just want a friend. But she goes, "No, you need to come and meet my auntie." She was very, she kept on insisting. So I thought, okay, I will come and meet your auntie. So I think it was 2 days after, or maybe a day after, I went to a compound. Love all the houses down there. You can see they're wealthy houses, but they always had like a quarter, a headquarter, which is sort of at the back. My uncle had one where the boys sort of lived at the back. It was kind of like a semi-detached sort of quarter at the back. And she had a similar thing. So she took me to the back and I met her aunties, these lovely light skin. They had European features, very pretty ladies. And they said to me, "Look, you're very, very beautiful. Have you ever thought of being a model and things like that?" And I said, "No." They said, "Look, right, I know that you're going through a lot." They actually started enticing me. And at this particular time, this was just before I turned 13 years old. And she turned around, she said to me, they said to me, "Look, you can have anything you want. We have the ability to make things happen. Anything you want in life. If it's men that you want, men will worship you, men will give you anything you want, they'll find you attractive. You can go anywhere you want, you can make any money, anything that you want." So they said to me, "I heard, are you a virgin? I heard that you're not a virgin." I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Right, that's even better." So what they've done, they sat me on this square, sort of like a small tables. You had like 2 seats. There was like 2 seats. So they sat me down. They made me food to eat, right? I ate food, I drank. And then they said to me, "Look, don't worry, don't be scared." I'm looking, there's a mattress on the floor, just a mattress. And then there's just a table. And then there's 2 seats. One was standing, one was sitting, and I was sitting down and eating. Then afterwards, they just said, "How are you feeling?" I said, they're like, "Are you much better?" I said, "Yeah." So the next thing I know, I'm sitting there and they're talking to each other in a different language. I can't hear them. And then a man comes through. And all of a sudden, they said to me, the door opens, and then I see this man. He's a northern guy from Abuja. He had like European features, looked maybe about in his 40s. At this time, I'm 12 plus, going to be 13 years old. So he comes in and then they sit down. They say, "It's going to be okay. Just go and lay on the bed." So I said to them, "I'm getting scared." I'm thinking, what's going on? I'm like a bit unsettled. They can tell. They're trying to calm me down because the women, I could understand with the women, but a man coming in unsettled. And then they go, "It's going to be okay. You will get anything you want, anything." And I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'll go and join my mother. I'm thinking this was my heart desire, to go and have a family, to be with my family, to see my mother. So I lay on the bed and the man comes in. They switch off the lights, right? And he had a sort of a puffy belly. And then he comes on top of me. He takes off my underwear. They had like a white sheet. It had to be a white sheet. It wasn't any other color, plain white sheets on the mattress. And then he had sex with me. When he was having sex with me, I tried to resist him a little bit because I was uncomfortable with this. I don't know this man. Then he said, "It's going to be okay. He's going to think about what you've been told. You're going to have anything you want." Then finally, he puts his penis inside of me and I'm closing my eyes. I feel something leaking out of me, but I wasn't sure what it was at the time. Afterwards, all this while I'm closing my eyes and just feeling uncomfortable and, sort of closing my mouth like as well, because I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm in pain. I'm holding onto the mattress. And then afterwards, I think it took about 20 minutes, maybe 20, 15 minutes. Afterwards, I got up. I noticed I was bleeding. I saw that the bed sheet it had blood all over it. The ladies turned on the lights. They were so happy. I said, I'm bleeding, I'm bleeding. They said, don't panic. That's what happens. You've just lost your virginity. That's good. That's very good. And I thought, okay.
Did you know what sex was at this age? Or were you just, I have no idea what's going on?
I had no idea what's going on. All I'm thinking is I've been told and I've been programmed at that time, you get anything you want. That's all I'm thinking about, is I want to come out of this horrible life that I've been living over here, where I moved from different. I want my mother. Oh, that's all I was thinking in my head, is I want to join my mother. I want to be able to have a life. I want to be loved. That's all I'm thinking about. That's what my desire really wasn't about the men. It was more of, I want my mother. I want to join. I want to have a family. I want to be loved. I want to have a self-belonging. So afterwards, I saw blood. They said to me, don't panic. They said, they took the sheets. The ladies turned on the sheets. They had a smirk, a smile on them, very happy. I'm thinking, why are they happy? They're smiling because their smiles are very enticing. I'm smiling too at them. And then it's quite welcoming. So I'm smiling back. They take the sheets. They're like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. So they take the sheets. They take my underwear with blood, right? I had to go home without no underwear. When I got home, I had to have a shower. And all of a sudden, after that happened, my mother called Uncle Tony, told Uncle Tony, go and take all her details, all the birth certificates and everything she has, go to the immigration in Abuja embassy, put that in, everything is going to go through. And then in the beginning, before all of this happened, all they wanted was just one. There was documents always missing. Nothing could ever go right. All of a sudden, everything went well. The next thing I know, I think it was either 3 to 5 days later, right? It was coming up to my birthday. My uncle came back and said, all we'll just need, you're going to be joining your mother very soon. All we just need is just your mother to come down and get you. And then he was liaising with my mother. My mother had an interview in England. Do you know, even when I met her, she said to me, you know what, when I went to the interview, I didn't have an interview. It was like this lady was like my friend. All she said is go and get your daughter. That's what the lady said to her. And 5 days later, I think it was just my birthday. She came in just in time for my birthday. So my birthday is on the 5th of May. She came in just in time for my birthday, or just a day after my birthday. I'm not 100. I can't remember the exact day, but I know it was a period within my birthday. And she came, she bought me clothes, she bought me everything. She goes, look, you're coming to the UK with me. And then at the time she was pregnant, she said to me, look, I'm early pregnant. I'm married now. You have a little sibling, right? And she said she's 5 years old. She goes, you're going to be coming. I'm going to go before you, but you're going to be coming later. I came to England, I think it was on the 12th of May, was when I arrived in England. I took a flight on the 11th of May. And I had to exchange 2 flights. In fact, I was a minor that I shouldn't have been traveling myself. They allowed me to travel by myself. And then she picked me up in Heathrow Airport in the UK. And then she took me to the blocks of flat that she was living, Isdale House, Ivory Bridge, Isleworth. We was living on the 17th floor. all of a sudden this was where I met my ex-stepfather at the time, who's from the Yoruba tribe. They worship Dambala. They worship, his father was a voodoo priest as well in Nigeria, but he comes from another tribe. But he was not supposed to marry my mother, but they got married anyway. In the relationship, the first day I met this guy, I didn't like him. Something about him, I didn't like him. I didn't want to call him father. I said to my mother, I don't like it. She goes, well, he paid for your fare to come, so you need to start calling him father. He's your father. She's imposing him upon me. You don't, when a child meets a new, spouse that is not their father, you give that child time to kind of warm up. And if they want to call, if the child wants to call that guy dad, she's welcome, but you don't impose that. I was being imposed that upon myself. So I didn't have a choice. I refused because I was quite stubborn. I said, I'm not calling you dad. You're not my father. And then he was angry with me. It went to the extent he had introduced me to this Jamaican guy that lived on the third floor, but he was a pedophile. He has sex with young girls and young boys in the flat. And so he's a Jamaican, he smokes marijuana, and he's also, at the time, I wasn't aware of it, but now I know. He was into drug smuggling, he was into prostitution, and putting young girls into a prostitution. So my mother and my ex-stepfather at the time introduced me to this guy in the block on the third floor. He looked at me, goes, oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, she's so beautiful. I said, uncle, because in Africa, once we've been taught, if someone's older than you, even if by 2 years old, you have to call them uncle or auntie. You have to respect your elders. So I called him uncle. Then the next thing I know, I was seeing my stepfather paying this guy money all the time, but I didn't know what was going on. Something never seemed right to me, but I can't. If I went to ask them any questions, they will shut me up. So the next thing I know, right, I started getting treated like a house help. My mother tried to put me in school quite quickly. I said to her, look, I want to go to mixed school. So there was a school that was close by, which was a Catholic school, and it was called Grumbly School. And I said to her, I don't mind going to, if it's all, she goes, you must go to all girls school. Why are you going to mixed school? What? I never brought you here to have sex with boys. You're going to all girls school. And I'm like, Mom, that's where I used to go to school when in Nigeria I used to go. I'm not used to all girls school. She goes, well, you have to go wherever I tell you to go. You're in my house. So she said, treated me like a house help. She had a high pregnancy. She left me in the house most of the time with this new guy that I don't know nothing about. The next thing I know, she ended up putting me into an all-girls school. She said she was going to take me to the Catholic school. She was supposed to go and get me baptized. So I'm legally baptized so I can get into the school. She prolonged it. She didn't do it. She had to take me to one of the worst schools in Brentford, which actually everyone who's been to that school are either on crack, they're either working in a retail shop. They're not doing nothing. They're not doctors or lawyers or nothing. Basically, this is one of the worst schools to go to. The teachers are not there for the betterment of the children. They're there just to teach. In fact, I was even aware that one of the teachers in that school was having sex with one of the young girls. Yes, there was actually a rumor going around, and one of the girls was, and you could tell because the energy, the way they were. So that school was one of the worst schools. That was where I met up with the girl, the Jamaican girl, who was quite tall. She looked like a man. Everyone was scared of her. She had left the school. It was like a mini school prom night. My mother had done my hair, and I looked very nice. I went there, and everyone looked at me, used to bully me and tell me, look, that's the Nigerian girl, the monkey girl that, you know, has come into the country. And my mother used to make me wear some long skirt up to there. All the girls would be wearing just skirt just above their knees or just below their knees. But with mine, I had to wear, looking like a nun, basically, and carrying all the books, even if I was just doing 2 classes. So my bag was heavy. So I was like a nerd, what they call a nerd. So, and everyone would be laughing at me, taking my money, bullying me, telling me, go back to your country. So I was being bullied. That particular day, there was this Jamaican girl. There was about 20 girls all surrounding me, all around in circles, bullying me, pushing me. And I was crying. And then I saw this tall girl with a horsey voice, you know, like a male voice, go, leave her alone. Like everyone just scattered. So I thought, oh, thank God. And then she said, don't worry. Why? She goes, why are you guys bullying the girl in Jamaican accent? You know, she ain't done you guys nothing. So she goes, don't worry, I'll take care of you. You're my friend. We're friends. She took me to her house. I experienced paranormal in her house. There was kind of spiritual activities in her house. I saw the bin move from one end to the other. No one pushed it. So once again, I experienced. And then she changed the way I look. I used to like to dress up sort of like the Tokyo, you know, like those kind of Japanese trendy. She changed the way I look. She wanted me to start wearing mini skirts. She put makeup on me for the first time, and she curled my natural hair and everything. And she goes, that's better. You look nice. And all the girls there are giving her thumbs up. Yeah, you look better now. And that was the beginning of her grooming me into the sex industry. She had her family a high profile in the criminal world. They're into drug smuggling from Jamaica back to England. They also work with police corruption, right? Protection. They also are into prostitution. They're into pedophilic and things like that. So once again, I was getting bullied. I ran away from home. The social services, which they call child protection over there, did not take over my case. They did not assign me with a social caseworker. I ran away from home so many times. I'd come back from school. My mother was away in the hospital, and he would tell me, wash the plates. He would just get me to do just house chores. And I was getting fed up. So I just ran away. I wasn't getting on well at school and everything. So I just decided to run away. In fact, I ended up not even going to school.
You had to have felt so betrayed, like every single person in your life that you tried to love or thought you loved you or tried to trust, you would be betrayed by every single person in your life. I can't even imagine how hard that must have been. That's hard enough as an adult when somebody betrays you, much less from the time you're born, essentially.
Yes, definitely, definitely. So I got so angry. I ran to one of the girls called Emma at the time. I stayed at her house for 2 days. Then my mother called me from the hospital and said, go back to the house. I said, so I'm not going back. If you're not there, I'm not staying there because I never came. He's not my father. I never came to join him. But in staying there, where this man actually got the whole thing all plotted, where everything was all, he began to hate me, was one day I was getting ready for school. I'd gone in the bath and there was a bit of, sprinkles of water on the floor. It wasn't that much. It was just a little splash. And I had my towel on. So I went into the bedroom and he screamed my name. He goes, hey, ma'am, how many times have I told you to clean the floor? Don't leave the water. And I said, sorry, I've just come out. Let me just go and put something on and then I'll come and clean it. He goes, now. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. You're not my father. Stop talking to me like that. I'm going to do it afterwards. I'm not dressed. And he pulled down my towel and smacked me in the ass very hard. And then I said to him, don't effing do that. I'm getting angry now because I'm getting irritable. I'm like, don't effing do that. You're not my effing father. And then he goes, I'll do it again. And then he does it again. And then I'm crying. And then my mother hears the whole commotion. My mother goes, what's going on? I told my mom, she goes, don't worry, I'll talk to him. Just leave it. And then I can hear him talking bad about me to my mother. I'm crying. And then my mother goes, look, he paid for your fare here, so you must respect him. He's your father. Don't talk to him. I said, look, Mom, I'm going to call the police. And she's like, don't do it. He's your father. And then he goes, call the police then. And then I called 999 because I was aware of 999. So I called 999. I called the police. The police came round. They took a statement. And then they said to me that, do I want to stay in the house? And I said, yeah, that I want to sort things out. But as long as he's not there, I made it clear to the police, I don't like this man. He's always basically, he's very, very rude to me and stuff, and that he's assaulted me. I don't know him. He's not my father. The police left me in the house. They called the social service, which is child protection. The social services came round. My mother would not let the social services in. By law, right, in this country, now that I'm aware of, then I wasn't aware of the law. But by law, if a child calls that a man who's not legally their father, or even if any man hits their child in the buttocks, automatically there should be an investigation. They should have sent like a child protection, which is what they call over there, but over here we call them social services. They should have assigned a social services to come around and monitor the family to see if there's some kind of abuse going on in the family. That was never done. My mother chased them away, but they never legally actually sent anyone round. So it went to the extent that they took him to the police station for a day. He came back later on that evening. He opened the door, no, because I put the latch on the door, but he had the key. So he put the keys. My mother said, go and open the door because you rang the doorbell. I went there and I saw him through the keyhole, and I opened the door. And as I opened the door, he gave me such evil look from his eyes. And he goes, you will pay. He pointed at, he goes, you will pay for this. And I can tell you since then, so boy, did he let me pay for that. Because this is where the horror started. All of a sudden, I ran away from home. I saw him paying more money to the guy, the Jamaican guy. One day I was coming out of the house, I was crying. Sorry, every time I talk about this, it gets me to a place. I'm sorry.
Okay, don't be sorry.
So one day I was crying, and then all this while he had been inviting me, come upstairs, come and see me. And I'm like, okay, uncle. And I'm seeing my mother talking to him in such a nice manner and, very friendly. So I'm thinking they're friends. I don't know how things work over here in the UK. I know how things work in Nigeria at the time, in Africa, but not over here. So I'm now thinking maybe they're friends. I think he's a trustworthy guy. So I'm crying. He goes, come, what happened? And then he goes, I went upstairs. When I went upstairs, that's the first time I ever smoked marijuana. I saw him smoking marijuana. He had the house in a sort of like, it looked quite dark, reddish dark. He always closed his curtain, and he had a bit of reggae music playing in the background. And I would see him with this tin of marijuana and tobacco, and I would see him with his Rizzlers rolling, and he always have a split in one side of his mouth. And all of a sudden, I'm crying, I'm telling him what is going on at school, what's going on at home. I'm telling him everything. I'm just pouring out my whole heart to him. And he's just saying he's going to be okay. And I'm crying. He's like, it's okay, it's okay. He's trying to hug me. I'm like, it's okay. Pedophiles always have a way of, predators always have a way of trying to lure you in. Once they have that insecurity where they feel like, you feel you can loosen up and feel safe around them, that's when the whole abuse starts. So I'm crying, he's putting his arms around me, he's hugging me, he's telling me it's okay, you know, patting me at the back and everything. And I'm like, okay. And then he's like, you know, I know what will make you better. He gives me marijuana, the one that he had in his mouth. And then I took a pull, one pull, I'm coughing. And then he's like, take it again. But this time, hold your breath in and just so you don't cough. He's teaching me how to smoke now. So I take it in and then I release it. And then it's like, see, you're not crying anymore. See, you're better. And I'm like, yeah. And then he's like, dance for me. And he turns the music a bit up and I'm dancing. I'm loosening up a little bit. And then the next thing he does, he goes into the kitchen, puts at a time, which I wasn't aware, it would have been brandy, some kind of brandy in a cup. And he got me to drink. And I drank a little bit and I said, I don't like the taste of this. And he goes, no, just try. It's good. It's good. It's going to make you very happy, more happier. And I'm like, I don't like it. But while I'm drinking one, I'm feeling drowsy, not from actually the alcohol, but I can't see properly now. Even a 13-year-old child, 14-year-old child, when you take 2 sips, it don't get you all, you know, where you start seeing double. It means someone has spiked your drink. Because later on, I actually found out he had been spiking my drink because I actually saw pills on his tub, you know, in the kitchen. I'd seen he had certain pills that he was removing it and putting it in. So I'm getting hot. He's turned up the heating on a summer period and he's closed the windows, he's closed the curtains. And then the next thing I'm like, I'm too hot. Can you open the window? He's like, no, the window's open. He opens the window straight away and lies that the window is open. And then the next thing I know, he says to me, no, take off your top. Look, you're my friend's child. Nothing is you can trust me, you know, gaining his trust once again. So I take off a little bit of my top and I'm thinking, yeah. And then the next thing I know, I'm passed out on the sofa. He takes me into the bedroom and then he starts to have anal sex with me. Imagine a guy with that size of erection, right? And I'm only coming up to 14 or maybe even 14. The next thing I know, right, the man turns around to he starts having sex with me anally. That's the first time I ever knew of anal sex. I was aware of vaginal sex, but not anal sex. And then he's having sex with me slowly, and then slowly, and then I'm like, stop. He's like, he's going on for the first time. Then the next thing I know, I think I'm sleeping because I'm now out of it now. I don't even have the strength to fight anymore. And then he comes out of the room. When he comes back out, he's able to slip in more. I don't know if he had rubbed something in his penis or some kind of ointment, or I don't know if it was spiritual, but he never smelled like Vaseline. It had a scent to it. And then he was able to put it, you know, to go into my anal more. Then he starts having sex with me. He starts saying, it's okay. This is what we do here in England. You've now become a woman. I love you. You're mine now. And just whispering things into my ears, and I'm screaming in pain. He's got his hands on my mouth. He's got his hands on my mouth. And I'm screaming. I've got my head because I'm trying not to, you know, scream. Then the next thing I know, I think I'm passed out. He always had to let me out of his room, out of his house at certain period, early hours of the morning, either after witchy times, which is after 4, because the witchy times finishes at 4. So it was always after 4:35, he would always tell me to go home. So I'd go home, and then my mom would be, and my stepfather would be awake. Where have you, he wouldn't even, he would just have a smirk on his, my mother would be, where have you come from? My stepfather would say, leave her, right? And then this was going on the second time I went to his house again. So one of the reasons why I kept going back after the first time was because when you don't have nobody to sort of pour your heart to, or nobody to kind of give you any sense of care, what him telling me that he was my friend, that he cares for me and he loves me and that I'm his, that was what registered. It wasn't more of the abuse. Because of that, I kept on going back. And the second time I went back, it was the same process. And the second time I was having sex with older men, so many men. I'd have sex with 4 men. I'd be in the couch. The men will be touching me. One will be having sex with me. Only one I'll be, imagine, I'm still a minor. I'm still 14. I'm giving them blowjob, one blowjob. The other one is, I'm holding the other one's penis, trying to wank. So it's like, I'm now having group sex after he's abused me. And then on top of that, he would take it to the bedroom. And then he would have anal sex with me and ejaculate in my anal. One day, when all of this kept on going on, as this kept on going on till I was, I think, in my 20s. When I was, is it 21 or 22? At the age of 22, he started losing interest in me. It was more now to do with me having sex with other people. He got me, this was where I went into a ritual, sexual, satanic ritual sexual abuse. This was where I actually experienced my first one. I was in the house. He was talking to my stepfather because I heard my stepfather's voice in the kitchen. His kitchen, he put it on loudspeaker. I didn't see him for a while. I heard someone talking on the phone, but I wasn't aware who it was. And he left me in the front room for a while to go and get me a drink. And I said to him, look, I'm too thirsty. Can you give me some kind of soft drink? He said, there's no soft drink. I've only got brandy. So I took the brandy back. He was on the phone for about 15 minutes in the kitchen. So I thought, what's taking him long? When he came back, when he was there, I opened the door and I saw him taking the pills and he was crushing it and putting it in the drink.
Were you aware of that time that was a drug? Did you know?
At the time, I wasn't
know anything about that. At 14,
something wasn't right because I was getting older. I know that drinks would not make you, but every time I refused, every time he would get me to a position where I'm so hot, I'm so thirsty, that even if I asked for water, he wouldn't give me water. He would always give me brandy. So he actually knew exactly what he was doing, to the point that when I opened the door slightly, I heard my stepfather's voice. And he just goes, I have to go, shh. And then he hung up. And then I saw the crushed pills at the side. And then he rushed me out so quickly. Come on. Come, Bumba Club, come out of my kitchen. In Jamaica. And then I come out of the kitchen and I'm sitting there. And I'm just thinking, at this point in time, it's like I was already possessed. What I never told you earlier, when I'd had sex with a guy in Abuja, my chakra, what do you call it? My root chakra was beginning to spin. It felt like something was actually alive. So every time this man was ejaculating inside of me, it wasn't a normal penis. There's things that people can do where you go to a thing called obia man, which is the Jamaicans, they call them obia. You go to the obia man, you give them something to drink or something to rub on their penis, right? Which will make the woman, the girl or the child who they're having sex with, not be able to resist sex. They'll begin to, and it is like they'll push past the abuse because that's what you're used to now into is like the child's will has been broken so much that that child begins to feel that this is what love is. So even when abuse is going on, you start thinking that this is what love is when that's not what love is.
And there's
So
also an identity component too. It's like if I'm not when you're sexually abused from the time you're born, basically, that becomes what you think people value you for. So if somebody doesn't value me for my body or they don't want this, even though to people who haven't experienced that, it sounds crazy. I've noticed with a lot of the survivors I've had on, they feel a loss of identity when they're that broken down. It's like that if you don't have people wanting to have sex with you, then what good are you?
that's right. That's right. And you've got exactly what happened to me. Because when this was the first time, okay, after I'd gone to the house this time, one time I was a bit sad. And he said, there's a party going on today. Come on, I know you love weed. There's gonna be weed, there's going to be drink. By this time, I'm now grown. I'm probably about 15 now, but I'm still a minor, but I'm still. And then I went to the house, and this was where I experienced my first ritual, the spiritual aspect. He was having sex with me anally. Then I was having sex. There was about 6 guys. I don't know the amount of numbers, but they were in circle. They were dressed in like a robe. They had something on. And that's the first time I ever experienced coming out of my body. I came out of my body. I'd been having sex with all these people, right? I mean, all manners of nasty, nasty sex. That I was looking down at myself and I could see my vulnerable self down there. And I was trying to get into my body, but I couldn't. Something was stopping me from getting it because whatever they were doing or whatever they were chanting or whatever they were saying in the circle or whatever they had invoked would not allow me to go into my body until when the whole ritual was finished, then I could come back into my body. But what I'll tell you is, which I did not mention, every time I had sex, a group sex with him or with anybody as I grew much older, I would always come out of my body. I was always out of my body. When I came back into my body, I was always exhausted. I didn't have the energy. I was so tired. I felt like I'd done like 60 days work nonstop because I was so wet. When people come out, if you do research of anyone who comes out of their body, it's a terrifying thing and it's also a very exhausting thing. And I remember another incident through all of this, while all of this was also going on. The Jamaican girl now had introduced me to her auntie who was into selling sex videos of children, right? But she's working with the police and everything. So this is where the corruption goes. And this Jamaican girl has their family, so they have sex videos, they can distribute it, and they can also distribute it as well to people in India, in Africa, in America, so they could distribute it everywhere. All this while, when this was going on, when I was young, this Jamaican guy was recording me every time. They were selling my videos. When I was being abused, there were instances where I had sex with guys, they raped me, and I had to push past that rape. Instead of me crying, I had to push past that rape into enjoyment. And when someone has been sexually abused for so long, it's like you pushing past it is a form of you taking control, because you're not going to rape me. Rather, I'm going to take control of this. So I sort of try to program my mind to be able to take control of the rape into pleasure. So even if I'm not having pleasure, I could become like the dominatrix people, where you can now the abuse, the slapping, the beating, the pulling of the hair, right? The raping and the roughness now goes from there to actually, I'm going to enjoy this. You're not going to break me down, and you're not going to make me feel, you're not going to abuse me, but rather I'm going to enjoy this abuse. And that's where my mind went to. And for so long, I went in life.
Mechanism. It's like,
yeah, I went in life taking that abuse. Like abuse was like, it was something that I had to enjoy.
You have to get through it. That stuff can kill people.
And the more I was being abused, the more I was beginning to feel like I'm somebody, because that's what men loved me for. They loved me for the sex. When all these men came to me, it was all to do with me satisfying them. So me seeing them satisfied made me feel like I'd accomplished something. So it now went no longer to do with my pleasure, but I got pleasure being able to give them pleasure. So it's kind of like someone beating you. Some people get to the extent of where the man has to beat them and then have sex with them straight away for them to feel a sense of he loves me, but they'll never detach. So that was the mentality. That's what was now programmed into my subconscious mind. And for so long, this other Jamaican girl took me to parties, made sure that they drugged me. At times, I became so dependent on marijuana. And at times, they would even drug me on top of that, with maybe even crack or some. They'll put things in my drinks where I'm now hyper. And on top of the possession, I get to the extent where now I'm now the life of the party, and everyone is sitting there, but they know that all these 12 men or 22 men are all going to be having sex with me. So I'm now gone. So the entity has now taken over me, which is what they call incubus. I had incubus. I was actually, for many, many years, I was possessed with incubus. From the minute I came from Nigeria, when they took my blood, and the ladies took my blood to the sea, which is what I never mentioned. What they'd actually done was the significance of my blood, because when my blood when they'd taken my essence, blood is a DNA. So where there is DNA, you can alter DNA. That's why science has now realized that they can alter DNA. Right. It's the same with the spirit world. When you go into the spirituality. Once they take your blood, or you take someone's semen or someone's essence, a woman's essence, they can take that and dedicate that into that demon, which is the mami water. And they actually went and dedicated me to that mami water spirit. So that mami water spirit could link me wherever I went. So even if I was in Australia, any occultic man or any demonic man will always be able to trace me. It's kind of like a link that can connect me. So I could be even in the jungle, an occultic person could link could always find me, because that demon will speak to them and say, this girl is here, go here. You see the girl that you need. And every time an occultic man had sex with me, they would get promotion. They would become bigger. There was a police officer who had sex with me. He went from being a normal police officer to being like up there. There were men, occultic men that came. So they stole in other words, what they call stealing your essence, stealing my luck, stealing my destiny. So my destiny, so what I was destined for would go to them. So it's like, it's kind of like a transference. It goes from there to there. And then whatever bad luck they have goes to me. So that sticks there with the voodoo and everything that was done to me. So on top of that, the girl would take me to sex parties. I would have sex with 20 men. There was one that happened in Harrow where they would make me drink. They would wank and come. They would basically have their sperm in a bottle, in a cup, and I'll drink it. They would make me, they would have sex with me anally. They would, and the worst thing is now I'm so possessed gone. It's like the incubus, because what a lot of the times incubus does is incubus like dirty sex is one of the low ranking of the demons. Even the higher demons don't want to have nothing to do, which once we finish the interview, I'll introduce you to the outreach worker so you can book a time to actually be able to speak to him, about demonology, because he was an ex-demonology. He studied it. He did an oath. He was supposed to be in the top ranking. But when he was ready to see Lucifer, which a lot of people think when they think about the devil, they think about two horns, until Lucifer actually comes in form of a baby, because Lucifer has blue eyes and blonde hair. Remember, in the Bible, it says in the Bible, Lucifer before he fell, was one of the most beautiful angels. He was a musical angel, was an angel, but he was the leader. He was one of the most beautiful. So when he comes to people, that's where the outreach worker will explain in detail, because he's actually seen Lucifer. He's actually experienced when he was doing his thing to go up in the ranking. He saw Lucifer, he saw the realm, how things really work. So, but, it went to the extent where now they were making money off me. This girl who came in foremost, she was trying to help me, now exploited me, and was also working with the Jamaican man in the estate, and was also working with my ex-stepfather, as well as working with my mother. How can I prove that my mother knew about it? Right. Which, like I said to you, there's certain things that I cannot bring forth for legal reasons. When that is ready, once all of that is sorted, I'll show audiences proof of everything. But I'll tell you something. He confessed to me and the outreach worker that he knew that I was in this Jamaican man's house, because one day she didn't see me. She came knocking at the door, which is true. I remember she knocked at the door. I was in the bedroom. She said, "Where is my daughter?" And the man said, "She's not here." And she confessed it to the outreach worker as well as myself over the phone. When I took this to the police, I reported it to the police. They could not, because it was historical events, there was no evidence. They couldn't take it further. They dropped the charges. Even though she was aware from day one when she moved into the estates that women were complaining about that the guy was having sex with their young children in the estates. They went to the police, they complained to her and told her. They went to the police, and the police officer dropped the charges, did not go further with the charges. So he's going around still doing this, and nobody is doing nothing about it. So, right, this is where the police corruption comes in, because the criminal world can pay corrupt police protection money. Right. This is where my case came in. There was a whole lot of corruption within the police, within the social services, which is what you guys call child protection, right? As well as within the drugs. This girl would be giving me things when I first came into the country. She'll be giving me things in a bag to go and give to people. I didn't know it was drugs. She would even tell me, don't open it. If you open it, I will know. She'll stand across the road watching me going to give it. I'd give it to the man and I wouldn't know I'm giving drugs. I was being set up.
Oh my God.
There was a whole lot of, because I was so vulnerable and I didn't know the laws of the land, I didn't know how things work, I was the best victim.
And you were programmed to obey. They programmed you all the time. You didn't get to say no to things. You never learned consent. It was just forced into these really horrific things.
Exactly. So it went to the extent where I was then giving out drugs, and meanwhile they're taking pictures of me, sending it to the social services, right? And saying that I'm dealing drugs, that certain people I was around with were pedophiles because it was on file. But how was I supposed to know they were pedophiles? How do I have access of looking them up? Certain people I was sleeping with, whether it was in group sex or whether it was I thought they were my boyfriend, they were video recording me. Everything was all snap, video record. So even when I'm having sex with all these men and I'm coming out of my body, they're video recording it and taking it to the social service. See, she's a prostitute.
Oh.
So all of my kids was being taken one by every time I was giving birth, they were taken. Social services never came to me to say, look, what is really going on with you? Because I went into the care system when I was 15 years of age. I'd been running away from home from the age of 13. 14, they were aware of me, right? They took me when I was 15 years old. From 14, social services had my case, but they never allocated me a worker, someone to work with me, a social worker. They never assigned me a social worker to be able to, you understand, which you guys call child protection. They'd never assigned that for someone to work with me to see this child is only 14 years old, right? She's reported her stepfather. She's run away from home. What's really going on within that family? There's something, let's investigate. Let's take her into the system. Let's give her someone that can work with her and that can mentor her, give her counseling and get her better so that she can be a better person, so that she can be a better a mother to her child. That was never done with me. In fact, they pushed me to leaving care team. Leaving care team, it means when someone's over the age of care, where the social services can take over, like if they get to 17 years old, they push them to leaving care team, and then they sort of say, right, you're coming to an adult to that age of 18, which is consent age. So therefore, we will be helping you, build you up to come into your adulthood so that you can be an independent adult. That's where they pushed me to instead. They pushed me knowing that my life was at threat, right, to live in different bed and breakfast, while the same girl, she was bullying me, taking me to the parks to sleep with boys, right? And she would also be, everyone was scared of her. From school, everyone, even the drug boys were scared of her because she came from a certain family where they were doing obia, which is black magic. They were also doing prostitution. They were well known. They were into criminal gangsters, which was paying corrupt police to protect them. So if you go and you report them to the police, they can get anyone to kill that person off. So they were high ranking. So how can I run away from such a girl? Anywhere I went, she knew where I lived. They placed me in the heart of the high street where she could find me. So every time I went into a bed and breakfast, she would come and knock at the door, bring the boys in, they would make up noise, smoke in the bed and breakfast marijuana, throw the cigarette, just go all hell wild, right? And then they will kick me out. Then the people will go back to the council, the housing, and say, look, she's being a nuisance, she's disturbing the peace. They'll kick me out. This kept on happening every single time. So it went up to the extent where she, in the early age stage, after she had helped me in school, she had a boyfriend. Her boyfriend was selling drugs. He was on tag by the police. He was illegal. He wasn't supposed to be in the country. So he was actually here illegal. So they put him on tag. He was running away from the police. She was early pregnant. She was making me walk around with her in the high street every single day in heels, so that she'll be introducing men to me. She'll be telling men, there she is, pointing me out to the men, that basically I was the one for the sex work. She put me into the prostitution, even without my consent, without my knowledge, to the point that I was so thirsty. She literally, and her boyfriend was there for their own for their own laughter. Do you know what they did? He pissed into the bottle, right? He weed in the bottle, gave me, I said, I'm thirsty, apple juice. She came with the apple juice, gave it to me, took it from him, gave it to me. I drink it, I realize I've drank piss, I threw it. They're all laughing, everyone there just laughing, having fun at my own expense. And then it went to an extent where I was pregnant, I was early pregnant. Once again, this is where the system failed me in this country. I was being put in, it was meant to be a home for protection, to protect the young people. Somehow, there was someone who lived there, who lived in that block. And do you know that she was pregnant? Her boyfriend, right, was downstairs. She came up, I don't know how she knew I was living up there. She rang my buzzer, my next door neighbor let her in, right? Even though I told my next door neighbor, if this girl ever knocks, don't let her in. She let her in, she rang my doorbell, I didn't want to let her in. The girl who was sharing the place with me, opened the door for her. She came in. I'm scared to my wits, I don't want to let her in. Do you know what she did that night? She dragged me to come down now with all of her gangs, her drug boys. I had to go downstairs. When I went downstairs, my stomach wasn't that big because I was early pregnant. She was heavy pregnant. She told me to take off my clothes in front of, I had to strip. I stripped her. When she left the door, she left to go use the loo, the lavatory. She turned her boyfriend said, the one who didn't have a stay in the country, said to me, I should give him oral sex, that he'll make it stop. I said no. She ended up telling me, smoking weed, blowing it. He's smoking, blowing weed and crack in my face, and ended up telling me, strip. I had to strip, take off my clothes slowly. I'm begging and crying. She's telling me, strip, or else everyone is there. These boys, she could get me killed. And I'm stripping, I'm having to strip naked. I mean, nothing on completely, down to nothing on. And they're all laughing. and they're taking pictures. Someone's sitting there taking pictures of me. And where did those pictures end up? Social services. So everything in my life was all, it just wasn't voodoo. It just wasn't just being sex trafficked. It's just like the whole stage was all set. Who was going to do what was going to be done to me. Everything was all planned out, like how you plan a journey. And it went to the extent where I got so scared of the girl, I'd be walking around the high street with her. She'll teach me how to steal. She'll make me steal, or she will steal. She'll get her son's pram and she will put the stuff. She would take off the tag, put her son's, put where her son's pram is. She'll put the stuff, stolen goods, underneath the son's pram, and then I will be the one to push it off. So if they stopped me and arrested me, I take the blame for everything. It went to another extent where in Feltham, there was a girl she did not like, a vulnerable girl, because she tried to get the girl in the game. At the time, I wasn't aware. Now I know what that was really about. She tried to bully this European, this Caucasian girl into being a prostitute, trying to get her into the prostitution, and the girl would not have it, right? And you know what she did? She came back and lied to me and another girl and said, look, this girl has been mouthing her mouth off, how she's being rude and threatening her and saying she's going to do me this, do her this. And she said that she's going to do her in. Guess what she did? I thought she made me go with her. We were somewhere where there were trees away from the public. She beat this girl up so much, punched her in, punched her face in, kicked her, got the other. I said, me, I'm scared. I don't want to do it. She told me, it's either you're with me. If you don't do it, you're not with me. It means you're against me. Then I had to kick the girl one time. Guess what? It was all set up. They knew where to run. I'm running. I can hear police sirens. They arrest me instead. They arrest. I get arrested. Then she got into a maid. While all of this was being done, all of this was shown to the social services. Everything that was happening in my life was going back to the child protection. So they would take my kids away from me. And then it went another incident where I went to a house. I went to her home and she told me to come to her house. I didn't want to go. She made me do shopping. I carried the shopping all the way upstairs, struggling to come up right to the 5th floor. Then afterwards, she turns around. I'm hungry, right? It's late now. I'm hungry. She wouldn't let me eat or even drink, but she would let me always smoke the last 2 puffs of her spliffs. And then she sat in the toilet, smoking her spliff. When she's in the bathroom, she's smoking, blowing it at me. Then after the last one, she'll give it to me to smoke. When I tell her I'm hungry, she'll make food for her son, ravioli and some chips or something, or baked beans or whatever, or even these kiddies, sort of like potato kiddies things on there. And do you know what she'll do? I'll say, can I have some, please? Let me have you. She's just bought shopping. I'll say, can I have some? No, you're not eating my child's food. You're too greedy. This is my child. And I'm like, I'm hungry. She would literally, if the child's ravioli is left, she'll say, you throw it in the bin. I'll say, please let me have it. I have to beg her. Then she'll be like, yeah, have it, have it. If I'm lucky. And then there were instances where she would make me have to stay in a house to look after her son. I'll look after her son. Then afterwards, when it was time to sleep, I'll be like, can I share the bed with you? She's got a double bed. Her son has a lovely, one of these kiddies' beds, Mercedes beds. And I'm like, can I sleep on it? Adults would sleep on it. She'll be like, no, you can't sleep on it. I'll be like, where do I sleep? Can I sleep on your sofa? No, you can't sleep. I'll look after, make sure her child sleeps. I'm so exhausted. One time, I was looking after her son. When I took her son, I was standing there like that in a trance because I'm so tired. I'm sleeping and And I sat on the bed. If I hear her footsteps, I get up, you know. And she did a lot of horrible things to me. Then there was another incident where the girl ended up, what did she ended up telling me to come. I was in a house, and we ended up, she said to me, look, I want you to go to the local shop. I said to her, what exactly do you want? She goes, her boyfriend at the time was a drug dealer. This is someone new, because her other boyfriend had been the one that was illegal, because I reported him to the police about the piss, me drinking piss. They found out that he was illegal in the country. So they deported him back to his country, Tanzania. So she was angry with me. I became her enemy, basically. And then because of that, that's when she started being she really wanted to F me up. So she ended up taking, there was one of her boyfriends she was with who was from Morocco. He liked me Afghanistan, I believe. He had liked me for a while, and I was disinterested because he had smelly feet. And she liked him. He was always trying to get with me. I said I was disinterested. So she hated me because I was prettier than her. And a lot of people always liked me. A lot of the guys she liked, they always liked me. So, which I didn't care. To me, I was never someone like that was superficial. I didn't care if I didn't like you. I didn't like you. If you liked me, oh, well, F off. So she ended up, he came to the house, and I had a home. I was finally being given a home through the leaving care team. And I try to make it as homely as possible. She brought guys into the house to do parties. Partying 3, they were coming in and out, 4 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m. screaming, shouting. The girls, the alcoholic girls that was also with, that she had also groomed into all of this as well. She was a Somalian girl. She brought them, they were all making up noise, smashing up the place, going downstairs to the the chicken chip shop that was downstairs. They're getting free stuff, not paying for it, to the point that she went and told the man downstairs that I was a prostitute. I wasn't even now. I later on knew, because the man came up to my home one day. I went and I said to him, can you, because I live upstairs, you know me, I always pay, give me credit and I'll come back and pay you the rest, very soon. And the man said, no, I couldn't do it. So the man said, I'll come upstairs, I'll bring it for you upstairs. And when he came upstairs, he tried to give me oral sex. He tried to have sex with me. And I said to him, no, I'm not interested. I had to fight the man off. He goes, but I was being told you're a prostitute, you sleep with men, Indian man, can't even hardly speak English. I said, no, I'm not. And he go, your friend, tall friend, tell me you have the sex, I'll give you food, you eat my food. And I'm like, look, right. I'm like, take your food. He goes, look, keep food, but me, I like you. And I said to him, look, I'm not like that. And then she kept on coming with different boys and girls in the house. The guy she liked, she stayed with him in the front room. Then she made me, there was a guy that I liked. I didn't mind having sex with him in the house. We were in the bedroom, and then there was another guy who came, and we all, with the Somalian girl, she was having sex with all of the guys. Afterwards, the guys came and had sex with me. All of that was all being recorded. She went and reported me to Child Protection Service. And it went to the extent where anywhere I went, guys were calling me a prostitute. They were now beginning to call me a prostitute. But who was taking the money on my behalf? Her. Who was taking the money on my behalf, selling the DVDs? Her, my stepfather, my ex-stepfather at the time, the Jamaican guy that was living in the thing, that was living in the block on the 3rd floor, And her family, they were exploiting me and making money off me and making millions out of my DVDs that was being recorded. And I wasn't even aware. Sometimes I'm even out of it, that they would tell me, smile for the camera, you know, and I'll just smile. But at the same time, even in the process of that, I'm out of it. And when you're out of it, you're out of it. You don't, someone could be talking, telling you do A, you would do it, not even realizing what you're doing till when you're sober, when the sober is gone, oh no, did I just do that? So it was I really went through a lot. I remember another incident where the very last incident that she did to me, where I thought to myself, I've got to get out of this. I can't be around this. Was when I went to a house. There was people in the house. Her son was there. It was in the evening period, about maybe 5-ish in the evening, maybe 4. It could be about maybe 5-ish, I think. And she said to me, go to the shop with her boyfriend. It was all set up already. And I said to her, well, you have everything you need. So the boyfriend was driving a red car illegally, but he was also selling hard drugs as well as marijuana as well. So he went to, she said, go to him with the shops. I said, okay. If I was aware of what was going to happen, I would have said in front of her, I'm not going nowhere. So I went in the car. We passed the local shop. He didn't stop. We passed another local shop. He didn't stop the car. So I said to him, where are you taking me to? She said, local shop. And he goes, well, the thing I need, they don't have in the shop. I have to go to another shop. So we drove about 20 minutes away or 25 minutes away from where her house was. When we went there, there's certain houses that the entrance is at the side gate, not you'd have the windows, but to get into the entrance, they have like a very narrow, shallow road where you can drive in. One car could be parked. If you drive another car in, you'll not be able to get out. So he drove in there. And I said to him, why are we going? He goes, I just need to see someone quickly. I need to talk to someone about something. I said, okay. When we drove in there, I felt unease. I'm saying, where's the entrance? He's going, I just need to park quickly. So he parks the car. He goes, just wait for me. I'll be there in a sec. And then the next thing I know, he rings the doorbell and then he makes a call on his telephone, on his mobile. Then a car drives in swiftly afterwards and blocks us in. So he goes to me, you know what you're here for, right? I said, what? He goes, don't play stupid with me. He goes, look, you know what you do with guys. I said to him, look, I'm not in the mood. I'm pleading with him. I'm saying to him, look, I'm not in, please. I'm not in the mood. I don't want to do it. And he said to me, if you suck my dick, as his words was, if you suck my dick, then I'll make this go away. And I said to him, look, I don't like you. You've always wanted me, but I don't like you. You're with this girl and I'm not interested in you. He goes, oh, well, get out of the effing car now. So I'm like, please, please, please. I see these 2 black boys at the back of one, comes out of the car, goes into the back of the car. The other one comes out of the passenger, goes to the back of the car, right? And they have a split. And I say, I'm crying. I'm like, please, please. He say, no, get in the car. So I get in the car. Then the boys start touching me up and everything. They smoking breeze in the car. The whole car stinks of marijuana. They're rolling some more and they're like, we know you like weed. They're making me smoke. I think, okay. In order to be able to do this, I have to be high because I can't do this while I'm normal. So I'm taking I take the weed, which at the time I used marijuana to cope with a lot of things. A lot of people that go through abuse tend to have some kind of substance abuse, there's always something that one clings on to be able to cope with what they're going through. It could be alcoholic, it could be drugs, it could be sex, it could be anything. So my one was actually marijuana. So I started smoking the marijuana. I'm taking as much balls to get me high off my nuts. Then I start having sex. They take off, they touching me while I'm wearing clothes, my vagina. I get so hot, I start taking off my clothes. I know what's going on, so I start having the sex. It's either do this or I know I'm going to be in trouble. And guess what? My keys and my bag. She had taken my keys. It was in her house. My keys, my phone, my bags, my bank card, everything was in her house. Oyster card, everything. Sorry, at the time they used to have, I think it was, they never had the Oyster card. They used to have the cards, like the paper ones. So that's why I had it. It was all in my bag. Whew. He ended up, I slept with them, had sex with them, everything. He stood outside, took a picture of me, video recorded the other thing because I saw the flash. And then afterwards, they opened the door, you can go now. Came out, went in the car. I went into the car, he drove me back. This is where I decided that I didn't want to be no part of that. I wanted to do everything in my power to get away from this girl. Her child was there. She had a 4-year-old child at this stage. I think he was 4 years old. The boy was watching music channel on her platinum screen. And there was 2 Somalian girls, 2 boys, and also herself, then her boyfriend and myself at the time. And I come in, she goes, I heard you try to sleep with my boyfriend. You're such a hoe. I turned and I said to her, look, that's not true. Who told you that? She goes, I know. I said, look. She goes, I've heard it. I said, look, I did not try to sleep with your boyfriend. I said to her, please, I called her name. I said, please, I'm tired. I would like to go home to go and shower. She goes, shut the fuck up. Sorry for my language. She goes, shut the fuck up before I bust your face. And I turned around, I said to her, look, please, I'm very tired. I need my bag and I need my keys. I need to go home now. She goes, you're not going no effing where. The next thing I know, she said, strip. I said, what do you mean? She goes, take off your clothes now. And I said, I can't do that. Your child's here. She goes, take off your fucking clothes. And then she goes, don't take off your clothes. She's in my face. I'm crying now. I'm in tears, uncontrollable. I'm looking at everyone there as to say, please, someone speak up for me. Someone stick up for me. No one. Everyone's just looking away, like just looking at me. Do as she says then. So I take off my top. Then she said, everything. And your bottom. And then I start taking it off slowly. She's like, now hurry up, hurry up. And then I'm taking it off slowly. I'm taking my time. She's been very threatening. And then I take off my top. I take off what I was wearing at the time, my trousers that I was wearing at the time. Then she said, I mean, everything now. Don't test my patience. She's actually being very, very, aggressive. I take off my bra. Then I'm looking at the boy as I'm crying. The boy's looking at me. The little 4-year-old is just looking at me. And then thinking, what's going on? And someone is trying to keep the boy busy in the front room. They didn't take the boy out. The boy is witnessing everything, and me trying to make the boy laugh and smiling, and the boy is laughing, and then I'm crying. The boy is confused, looking at my face in tears, stripping and everything. So then she goes, take off even your underwear, your pants, take that off. So I take off my thongs and everything that I was wearing, and then I'm holding it like that. And then she kicks me out, she pushes me out, and then she threw, because she was holding onto my bag and everything. She threw it out, not even my clothes. She didn't even throw my clothes. She kept the clothes. And while all of this was happening, I was being recorded. And then I'm crying. I go from the 5th floor, I'm knocking at all the doors, the neighbors' doors, to see who's going to give me something to wear. I'm holding onto my vagina and just crying and just going. No one's going until when I think I'll go to the 2nd floor or the 1st floor. A lady, I knocked the door, and the lady saw me vulnerable, and she just gave me a t-shirt, a long t-shirt to wear. And I wore that, and a long t-shirt. It hardly didn't cover me that much, but it covered, you could still see certain parts. And I went home and I had a shower, and then I was crying, quite depressed, and looking for marijuana to smoke to take away everything. But that was, when that happened, I realized that, look, now, I think what really touched me is the fact that I have kids and my kids weren't with me. And to sit there and allow a 4-year-old boy to witness you do that to someone that maybe the boy has been seeing with you since it was in the stomach, I think, for me, and the boy could talk, and he was a very smart boy. So to see everything happening, that boy witnessing what I was going through, that's when I realized this, I can't be around this girl no more. But it didn't stop there, because she still found me one way or the other. She found me every time I had my kids. She introduced me to one of my baby fathers who was selling drugs, and he was younger than me. She told him stuff about me, that I was a prostitute, and he beat me, threw me down the stairs when I was 7 months pregnant. And I didn't lose the child, thank God. When they gave me a place to live among the secure unit, he brought marijuana plants to the house and was putting lights to try and grow it. He got me kicked out. He made me take something they call B, I think it's the brown one. I don't know if it's called heroin. He was selling it. He made me take that while I was 7 months pregnant, 7.5 months pregnant. Someone was saying hello to me in the hallway, and I said hello. I smiled while I was pregnant, and he thought I was cheating on him, and he punched me up and pushed me down the stairs, and I came tumbling down. And I was lucky that child, my boy, survived. My little boy survived. And I've been, even when I was pregnant with my kids, my first son, when they put me to the leaving care team, she ended up stealing my money from my pocket. They gave me a maternity grant, £500 at the time. She stole that from me. When the social services came in to investigate, they put me down as my child was at high risk. And I have put my needs before the child's needs. I haven't bought nothing for the child. So they put me down as, basically they really portrayed me like I was someone that was mentally deranged, that I was involved in pedophiles. I was involved with association, basically, people that I was associated with, that they beat their children. But how was I supposed to know?
Your story is just, it covers so many different areas of this type of
Yes,
abuse. And I know we're not even close to being, I mean, what you've overcome and where you stand today is
yeah,
incredible. I was gonna ask, would you be open to doing a second episode? I'd love to continue the conversation and dive into some of these things a little bit more. And I think even talking about the demon possession part, I'm sure people
yes,
listening are like, I want to learn how she got rid of that. I want to know,
yeah,
how do you, just more details about that specific
yeah,
topic also. If you'd be
yeah,
open to it, I'd love to, I know we're kind of coming up on time. I'd love to give you time to explain about Pillar of Fire as well as how people can get in touch with you. And
yes,
I'd love to do a second part to this if you'd be okay with that.
yes, sure. That's absolutely fine. That's
Okay.
absolutely fine. No problem. I would like to, just before, when once you're gone,
Yeah.
when once you've switched off the recording, I would like to introduce you to the outreach worker who helped me go through my, who sort of put me in touch with Pastor Patrick. And through his experiences, we've been through similar experiences where that's what really thought, brought me to want to really talk about the abuse and to really, I wanted that change because when I realized our path, we've actually crossed paths in life. When I was in some of my sessions, he actually saw me and stopped it from happening and told the men to leave me. He's actually come in touch with me the very first time I met him during my deliverance. I'd seen him 3 times in a lot of the group sex where he has not been a part. He's actually stopped the men from abusing me and saying, leave this girl alone. Even when they were going to sacrifice me in one of the sessions where I was supposed to be have sex and be killed that day, he told one of the people, leave her alone. He
What do
actually
you,
saved me 3 times. 3 times I could have been killed. And those 3 times I was in sessions out of my head, we have actually crossed paths. So it's amazing how God, the universe, or if you want to call it, how it works.
yeah,
You think it's a big world, but it's actually a small world, you know?
yeah.
And yeah, so when we've finished, I would like to introduce you to the outreach worker.
Yeah, and if you guys wanted to do, if you wanted to invite him on next time too, we could tie that part
Yes,
into it. He's more than welcome to come on anytime and talk.
yes,
That would be
sure, sure,
okay.
sure.
Oh, I always feel like there's a period where it's like you go from a victim to a survivor, and a lot of times
Yeah,
that comes with a hero entering the story, whether
yes,
that's just a journal and that becomes your hero to just get everything out and you start to take your
yes,
power back, or if it's a physical person. And I'm so
yes.
grateful that you had one that
I
helped you get
know,
through. Yeah.
I know. He's been through a lot himself, and to me, I love Pastor Patrick. I love Pillar of Fire. Pastor Patrick is like my father, but Brian is really, if you want to say, who's your hero? I don't like to say the word idol, who's your idol? But
Right.
if you want to say, who's my hero? He is. He's really my hero because through what he's been through, I would have expected him to be a very bitter, an angry person, a woman beater, or to hate women, or and he's the opposite. It's completely the opposite. It's like, yeah, so he's my hero.
Well, same can be
So
said for you. I look at you and I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, I don't know if I'd have the strength to show up and smile every day like you do. And I know there had to have been a massive process that we can talk about and I'm sure you're still healing from all of this. I don't think you
yeah,
ever heal fully from all of this, but you're in a place now where you are talking about it and there has been
yeah,
progress in your life. You're not going through all of this still.
yes,
But I
yes.
look at you and I think you're my hero for being able to smile,
Oh, thank
show up,
you.
to do things like
And
this. It's
yeah,
you're
and the outreach worker and Pastor Patrick, I've got to hit back because what you it just wasn't voodoo and it just wasn't spiritual. It just wasn't, but it was also, it came with, like, I would call it a military, because it came with those who are supposed to be protecting the law were also involved. And he's been told to back off so many times. Police have actually turned around and told him, back off, she's a prostitute. Leave that prostitute alone. And yeah, so, he's been threatened, he's been beaten in, he's been kicked, he's gone through a lot. He's actually in the process of taking on my case. He's actually ended up having a stroke.
oh my God.
That's how, you know,
Take your
he's
strength.
even had brain hemorrhage, like bleeding. There's been so much. He's had to stay with me in the house that I live in just to protect me, because there's been threats upon my life, and there's been threats even spiritually. I've seen him nearly die in this house about 4-5 times, where I've thought he's never going to come out of it. But because God, there's no way you can, if someone's doing good, the light, if someone's in the darkness, the light will always expose and shine, to expose the darkness. And I believe it's God that is on his side. That's why he's where he is. That's why he's still alive, because most people would have been dead. So I commend him a lot. And I thank God for meeting him.
I thank God for you being here. I think you're a bright light in this dark world right now also. I think we see
Thank
things in
you.
each other that we encompass, and I think you see light in him because of all the light in you. You recognize that light in him. And I think
Yes.
that's really beautiful. Now, where
Thank
can
you.
people, if somebody's listening and saying, how do I get in touch with her? How can I support her? How can people get in touch with you, and how can they support you?
I'm actually, like I said previously before we started, I said to yourself, I'm not doing this because of money. I'm not doing this for fame or anything like that. I'm actually doing this because I want people to actually come out and start talking. And I'm glad that people are starting to talk. But I find that when it comes within the African race, there is a lot of abuse going on, that people are lip sealed. And these things that I'm talking about have been happening right from the beginning of time. And a lot of the times within the African race, there's this thing about, don't shame your family. Don't bring shame on your family. So because of that, because they want to keep that family orientated, sort of, even though the abuse is happening within the family, they don't want to feel alone. How I felt alone, how I was alone. So I'm really doing this because I want every race, but I want to minister to the African, whichever part of Africa you come from. Come out and talk, because I know there's a lot of this sex trafficking happening, and people are scared. People are thinking voodoo, because they've given them their hair, or because they've given them their blood, or because they've given them this or their family, that there is no way out. There's a way out, because as well as there's demons, there's also humans that are disguised as angels out there. God is not sitting in his throne room and saying, look, you go through what you're going through for no reason. God is actually, we go through this so that we can be of example, so we can help others not go through this. Come out and expose the very evil that has been ruining and hurting your spirit, your soul, your mind for this many years. Come out and talk. That's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I want people to be aware. I want people to know that there are different portholes you can open yourself up. Sometimes it might not be your fault, but sometimes there are things that people may do not knowing that that's a porthole. Come out. I want everyone to be aware of these pedophiles, because they don't come as angels. They always come as, once they see that you're vulnerable, that's where they know that this one, I can abuse this one. So there's signs to it. So I want to start telling people of signs from when you're within your family, signs when you're a child, and there's signs. So that's why I'm really doing this. But in saying so, Pillar of Fire is the one that's helped me. When we do our part 2, then I can go into details. But Pillar of Fire is a charity, it's a church, and it's run by an Igbo Nigerian pastor called Pastor Patrick, and he's based in Dagenham and in the UK. And I can tell you, in my story, I've seen pastors masturbate in front of me, which I'll go into details next time. And I've seen pastors, I've been possessed, and know that all these Pentecostal pastors are actually using voodoo themselves to fill up their church and to make money. I see it, I've seen it, and I know it. And when I met Pastor Patrick, I was very reluctant because I said to the outreach worker, look, I'm not interested in God. I'm not interested in Jesus because I've been through so much. I'm not interested in pastors because all of them are all in it for to get some kind of gratification, to basically get some kind of puffed up. And I always said that to him, and he said, no, if you meet my pastor, he's not like the rest. And I can tell you, when he prayed for me in my home, when I started manifesting like a snake, because before I got my deliverance, my eyes were so defined like snake. You could see that there was something coming out from my eyes. You could see that there were entities in my eyes. You couldn't actually, sometimes I would look at myself in the mirror and I knew it wasn't me. I scared even my own face in the mirror. I didn't like to look at myself. And what I can tell you is Pastor Patrick runs his ministry, and what he does it with his own pocket, with the money that comes from his own pocket. He doesn't do it from any contribution that has been given to him by any charities or anyone. And what I can tell you is, if anyone really wants to help in what I'm trying to do, I would like to be given the platform to continue to share my story for awareness. And also, the other part that I would like is to support Pastor Patrick, the deliverance aspect, not exorcist, because that's a different genre entirely. He deals with deliverance ministry because Jesus Christ dealt with deliverance ministry. So if someone's possessed, he can cast out the possession, not through his own power or cultic power, but through the power of Jesus Christ that has been assigned to him. So that's what he does. And I support what he does, and I support the ministry. So if they want to contribute to his ministry, whether it's through finances, I would like to plead with everyone to contribute to Pillar of Fire. Right. And I would like to also like Pastor Patrick to be given a platform to come all over the nation, not just England here, but as well as over there in the States, to go around delivering people, because there's a lot of people that are demon possessed, and there's a lot of people going through this, and they don't know where to go for help. They go to all of these occultic pastors, and they can't. They're making the situation worse, because we need someone who's genuine to do this. And this is what I would plead with, the audience of people who want to help me do that. And I would also like the platform, like I said to you earlier, that I would like to get a safe haven, to be able to afford to have a safe haven for these young children, minors who are being abused, who they can't confide in someone who's been through it, and who, after they've spoken about it, they still have to go back to the same house and they still have to go through the same abuse. That's what I want. That is where I would like the support from everyone. So that's what I would like. Nothing else. I'm not asking for anything less. I'm not asking for no money. That's not it. So I just want people to support what we are doing. And I want genuine people, because this work that we're doing is genuine. We're not doing it for anything, but we're actually, the outreach worker and Pastor Patrick we've seen things and been through things where we know what it's like to be in that other foot. And if I could have had somewhere to have run to escape everything that I went to, my life wouldn't have has gone the way that it had gone. But I thank God that I went through, because it made me a stronger person. So in other words, I wouldn't change anything that I've been through. So yeah, that's what I really have to say. And the outreach worker would like to say hello. I'll introduce him. He goes by the name Brian. So come through, Brian.
Hello.
Here, Brian, it is so nice to meet you. I listened to you joined Lisa Meister's podcast that one day, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
You are an absolute inspiration. I would love to do, whether it's with you and Isibeal or just you, I'd love to invite you on the show also. I think you're an absolute wealth of knowledge and an absolute inspiration. And hearing how Isibeal talks about you, I was telling her, I feel there's always a point in a victim's journey in becoming a survivor where they end up meeting heroes along the way that help break them out of the horrific situations that they're in. And I know you were one of those for her. So I want to thank you for the work you're doing also.
Thank you. And just to tell yourself and your viewers, you're not victims, you're not survivors, you're all champions.
Champions, yes, overcomers.
Champions,
Yes,
all right? Because if you weren't champions, you wouldn't be alive to talk about it. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right? And you're the future.
Yeah.
You guys are the future, okay? And, you're doing God's work. Yeah? All right? And for all of you out there, for every one of you out there, I feel sorry for the perpetrators and the pedophiles, because you're coming for them.
We're coming.
Okay? You're coming for them. Yeah? And we'll do all we can to support you. Yeah? Everything we can do to support you, we will do. And God bless every one of you. Yeah? All right?
God bless you.
We're there with you.
Amen.
Yeah?
To that. Thank you so
and
much.
I'd like to educate your viewers and yourself about why these things come about and why they happen. It's nothing new. This is nothing new. But what is new is that you're going to crush it. Okay? You're going to crush it. Each and every one of you. And don't feel guilty for anything that you might have done, said, or anything. Do not feel guilty, because this was not your fault. Okay? And I will say that to the day I die. This was not your fault. God bless all of you. Bye.
Bless you too. It's so nice to meet
Love
you.
you.
I'll have Isibeal connect us so you can do it. I'd love to have you on.
Okay.
Thank you,
Brilliant.
Isibeal. And I thank you so much for coming on, sweet girl. Do you want to
Thank you for having me.
I know you mentioned your email to me earlier. Do you want to recite
Yes.
that? I'll list it, but for people who are listening and have a pen right now.
Okay, it's Isibeal. So that's spelled Isibeal, Rafela, Rafela @ gmail.com.
Amazing. And for everybody listening, you heard
Any
how
other
she wants-
details, I'll forward that to you because I've just opened a Twitter account and also a LinkedIn as well as Instagram. I've just recently opened an Instagram account.
Oh, wonderful. I'm going to have to follow you on there too, because I'm not following you on social media yet. So everybody follow all her links. I can't express enough to share this episode. That's the best way that that's the best way to support any survivor, any overcomer, any thriver, whatever words you want to use. Share their stories. This isn't going to be heard on the news. This is stuff it's our responsibility to share this. Isibeal's story gets heard when we take the responsibility to share it with somebody that will listen, to share it with people who won't listen, and to indulge in it in ourselves, because people like Isibeal, they're willingly telling you these really horrible things that they went through so you can learn yourself and go tell other people, so we can prevent this from happening in the future to other humans, to other children especially. And a lot of them don't make it out like Isibeal did. So we want more cases of people speaking up that have made it out, and we want to prevent this from happening in the future. And Isibeal, thank you so much for doing God's work.
Thank you for having me.
Again, of course, I'm excited to have you on again. And
Okay.
I'll put your stuff below. For everybody listening, please comment, subscribe, share. Anything that you could do to help grow this platform helps build their platforms of all the guests that I have on. So thank you guys all for listening, and we'll see you next week. And thank you again, Isibeal.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.